What's going on, everybody? FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays, a quick live stream to help you get closer to accomplishing your dreams. Listen, we got another good one here for you today. Look, I'm super excited. But first off, I want to say thank you for taking a moment out of your busy schedules to watch, listen to, and just pay attention to the Wise Word Wednesday show. Whether you're listening on Spotify, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter Live. Sorry, I forgot which one. This week I'm not doing Instagram Live. Twitter Live. I want to say thank you, right? Because I know that you have a lot of things that you could be doing with your time, and time is very valuable. But you're taking a moment out of your time to be able to listen to some of the things that myself and my guests have to offer for you. I also want to say thank you for putting up with my dog Simba, right? If you've been listening to some of the other episodes, you know that I've had to kind of pause for a second and be like, Simba, sit down. Like, Simba, leave it. So I appreciate y'all for putting up with Simba, because he don't care what I'm doing. He wants all the attention. Okay. So I appreciate y'all in that sense. The other thing I want to say is that if you are not already, please go ahead and hit that subscription button, hit that like button if you can, leave a comment if you can. The way the algorithm works, it helps us be able to get into other people's mentions and get into other people's feeds as well too. So please do that if you can. I think that not every message that you hear from the Wise Word Wednesday show is meant for you. Sometimes it's meant for a friend that you know. Sometimes it's meant for a family member who's following you that maybe you haven't talked to in a while. And that like button, that comment, right, it allows other people to see it, and they can see the content that might help change their lives. So I want to encourage you to hit that like button, hit that subscription button, and share this, right? Share this for the people that you don't know need it, but you're going to share it anyway. So please help us promote in that sense. Now, I have a very special guest that I'm about to bring to the Wise Word Wednesday show today. This person is probably like one of the greatest people that I've ever encountered, for a variety of different reasons, right? Uh, we have done some great things together, had some great experiences. We've traveled to Ghana, outside this country. We've gone to the motherland. And we've just really had such a beautiful time over there, getting to be surrounded with our people, right? Getting reconnected to home, to our ancestry. And she was a huge part of that process for me. This person is an really, really phenomenal educator, a dope mother, but she's also an actress, like an author. She does voiceovers. This is probably, I know that you all have seen the episode, or hopefully you've seen or listened to the episode where we had the Play Black Wall Street, the board game, Devon and Sinclair. This person that I'm about to bring to the show is the reason these people found out about Black Wall Street in the first place. She gave them the introduction to Black Wall Street, and then they took it, and now they literally have board games and businesses and an entire company from that little seed that she was able to sow. So it was so great. And I'm just excited the fact that I have an opportunity to have this person grace the show. Is just a blessing. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dream. What's going on?
What's up, Joe Spider? Thank you so much for inviting me to Wise Word Wednesdays. It's about
Yeah.
time.
I know. We've been talking about us doing like a podcast show together, like for literally like years, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited that we finally, got a chance to collaborate, because I know that you have a wealth of experience and knowledge that I think people need to see. And there's also another side of you that people really need to be exposed even more to, because you
Okay.
do a lot of things within the field of education, but I think it's like there's a lot of things that you're doing outside of that literally like people need to see is an opportunity for them as well too, right? Depending on what their interests are.
Let me just say, first of all, the introduction. It was given 10 out of 10. I was like, you know what? Life is not so bad after all. We out here making some type of a difference. I really
No
appreciate
doubt.
you. That was love. That was all love. So thank you. I appreciate you.
No doubt. No doubt. So Dream, listen, let's get right into it. Could you do me a favor and just tell the people a little bit about who Dream is, right?
Okay. So Dream, the name Dream actually comes from Drea and my last name put together. Essentially, where Dream came from is it's been with me forever. It's always been with me since I was just a little girl. And when I decided that I wanted to become a very serious actress and began to study the craft, I had to come up with like who is this person? Who is this that actually wants this? This has been a dream inside of me since I can remember. And it just kind of all came together. Drea and more. Dream more. Dream. This is who I am. This is my stage name. And when I go back and look at journals and poems, I would write Dream all the time. So this is a name that has been inside of me and been with me forever. But it's really a part of like my nickname, Andrea or Andrea, and connecting my last name. But it actually brings together the little girl in me, if you will, who've always wanted to act, and also somebody who is always trying to be like, a dream maker, someone who wants to inspire other folks to follow their dreams and not let go of their dreams also.
I love that. And I love one of the things you said where you said you went back and looked at your journals. You went back and looked at the notes that you had wrote, previously. And I did and not an experiment, but I did an exercise when I was in high
Mhm.
school where I wrote out what my 4-year goals were. I was a
Okay.
junior in high school. It was at a
Okay.
continuation high school, and we were not in good condition, right? But they told us to write out our goals, and 4 years later, they mailed those letters to us.
Wow.
And so when I was in college, I got to see what my vision was, right? And I got to see that I was accomplishing the goals that I had in mind, or I had already
Wow.
accomplished those goals.
Wow.
And it's just almost like satisfying feeling that you get when you look back and see like, yo, I'm doing what I prayed for, what I literally like,
Wow.
I manifested that. And
Hmm.
the excitement that you get, I don't think people understand, because oftentimes we're always, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? We don't get a moment to really celebrate where we are. So I think it's beautiful that you start off like, no, I went back and looked at the notes that I made, and I'm looking at, I wanted to be an actress, and you're
Yeah.
doing the actress, like you're being the actress right now. I think that's just
Yes.
dope.
Yes. Yes. And what's interesting too is like there was a moment where I had to look at my life and say, what goals have I set out and actually accomplished? But what about my dreams?
Hmm.
And for me, I think I separated goals versus dreams.
Right.
For whatever reason, I separated the two. And there was a period where I was like, I accomplished the goal of being a professor, or even though that wasn't something I grew up with. That's a different story. You can ask more questions about how that unfolded, but that unfolded, and I earned a PhD, and here I am. I'm a whole professor. Like, wow. But I was like, that was like more of a checklist. And it took a season of loss and a season of just me not being mentally or physically or emotionally well, and losing all the things that I thought made me who I was, at a time where I had to go back and like really do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-assessment, and then let a lot of things go, so that I had to empty out. Like I had to
Mm.
completely empty out in order to fill myself back up. And I was like, you've been out here living, not necessarily thriving, but somehow you're in survival mode. But like, what were your dreams? What were your dreams? And I kind of wrote off my dreams as being like superficial and, like not serious enough, not making a difference enough. Because for me, my life is not a conventional story. If
Mhm.
anybody's ever heard me talk or knows anything about me, then you know that I grew up in Richmond and Oakland, California, born in
Yeah.
Dallas, Texas, but becoming a product of my environment. I got involved in a few different things that are for the streets. But I also ended up pregnant at the age of 19 and having my first daughter at 20. But at the same time, I was working and going to school. And so this dream of acting, that was pushed to the side, previous to, like, before I even graduated high school, but that was pushed to the side because life was just very different for me at that time. And once I became a mother and a young mother, having to take care of children while trying to finish school became such a reality that I needed to take care of my family. And somehow for me, becoming an actress, the support around it wasn't necessarily there, and just the idea of it just seemed like, I think I kept getting these messages of like, that's superficial, there's no substance there, and I needed to like swipe that left and focus on taking care of my kids and finding another way to make a difference. But I ended up going to this voiceover class with my homegirl, who I call one of my dream defenders, as our girl Muganzo, Baylissa, Melissa. And the teacher said, if it's been in you, like our dreams that are inside of us, they're never going to go away. They're never going to die. Wow. And so until we actually do something with them, we're robbing ourselves of an experience. And so that really sat with me. He was like, it's never going to die. And then I had another like life-changing experience where I went to Egypt on some like eat, love, pray, again, emptying myself out completely type. And what was so funny is like the different people who were a part of that trip. One was a professional actress, one made movies, one did hair for actors on sets. And so it was just like, okay, it was just like this divinely orchestrated set of individuals who I was vulnerable enough with to share that I always had this dream of doing this. And I talked to them about what my hangups were, and they all were like, boy, you had a lot of judgment around this. Like, where is all this coming from? Like, why do you have so much judgment? And someone actually told me, the professional actress, Andy Allo, she actually told me, the same thing that you're doing in the classroom, the way you're trying to, bring truth to power and help tell those stories. She said, you can do that same thing with acting. Why don't you give yourself a chance? And I was like, damn, you're right. And sometimes, unfortunately, like I just told my students today, we're looking for permission. Unfortunately, we're looking for permission from somebody outside of us to give us a sign, something, even if it's divinely orchestrated, even if it's God. Give us permission to be. Give us permission to do that thing. Give us permission to say that. And in that moment, I decided I was going to give myself permission to take acting serious. And I ended up going to school for it. And I say this honestly, respectfully, and humbly. It's the only education I ever paid for. 2 years. Thus far, 2 years of college. I actually just graduated from Barron Brown Studios out of Los Angeles, and had it not been for COVID, that opportunity would not have been for me, because they needed students to fill up their classes, and they were like, people can't show up, but people want to act. So they opened it up to the world, and I got a chance to act with people from all over the world and actually become a method trained actor with the Meisner and Alexander technique. And I got blessed to have a Black acting coach by the name of the iconic Elaine Williams. And so it was just so much more than acting. It was about listening. Acting is so much just about listening, like literally listening and being present with who's in front of you and responding from your gut and not here. And so I had to be retrained, because as an intellectual, I'm trained to move from here. Everything
right. It's necessary.
Everything is logic. And what happens to a lot of people, what happened to me, is that unfortunately I had quieted my womb. I wasn't listening to what I was being told in my gut, because I experienced different things that silenced my womb, silenced my gut. Maybe, I was experiencing things in life, and the people that I was with would like downplay what I was thinking or I was feeling, or they wouldn't give any credence to that. And I shut that part of myself almost completely down. And I was able to, and again, in relation to like another part of my story was a sacred woman journey, I was able to go back and tap back into my womb, which is tapping back into my gut, which is tapping back into that right brain, that creative side. and giving that balance, that divine feminine balance in my life, because I was out of balance. And that's why I say acting is so much more than what people may think. It's so much more.
Wow. I think I mean there's you hit a couple of gems there. During that what you were talking about, I think is one thing that I kind of want to touch on was you mentioned that you had to be stripped of a lot of things, right? To before you got to realize what was for you, right? What was available for you or what you had the power to do.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's great because a lot of times, and I apologize if anybody's, not religious or not spiritual or anything like that, but just sometimes the universe, God will put things in front of us that he knows we're gonna get, but we have to let go of what we have already in our hands, in our possessions, in order to access and to
Mm,
receive what
mhm,
God has destined for us.
mhm.
And so sometimes it's hard because you're like, but I love this thing so much and I don't want to give it up. And also, I fear that if I give this up, I will end up with nothing.
Right.
But what is meant for us is 1,000 times greater than what we were holding on to in the first place.
Right.
But you don't get it until you get it.
Yeah, that's facts. That's
And it's
facts.
like I can, obviously I knew you before you started the acting, right? And I can just tell the joy that you get from doing it. Like I can sense that. And of course you get joy from educating others and working
Mhm.
with like in being in the classroom, but I can tell that like you're in your element, right? Like when
Yes.
you're doing what you're naturally like called and dreamed of doing. And so it's like we have to sometimes be fearless and
Mhm.
step out into the unknown so that we can get everything that we're supposed to have. But if
That's
you hold on to it, it's safe. This is safe, right?
mm,
It's safe,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
It's safe because you're in a state of familiarity, right? You're
mhm,
in a state of accepting accepting the right now and not necessarily looking into the unknown. So you're safe, quote, you feel safe. But whoops, I don't know how that happened,
come
but
on, because it's celebration, right?
right,
That's a
all right, that's all right.
celebration.
I'll take the celebration, but
That's some
it
joy.
feels safe, but it's not. I must have been preaching up on this thing. Look, speaking to the, I've literally never had that happen before. But it's different, right? And so you have to be willing to accept. Another thing that you mentioned that I want to talk about a little bit is, you really didn't understand the power that you had, right? Like
Mm,
in regards to like what this is something that I'm learning as well too. It's like you actually are stronger than you think, but
right.
you have to step into that and you have to be able to reaffirm yourself. And you were able to get power from those individuals that you went to Egypt with
Mhm,
that were working in that particular field. And they said, like, look, it's the same thing. You
mhm,
have to be willing to listen and take control of the power that you have within yourself to do what you were called to do. But it starts with shifting the way that you think, because sometimes
mhm,
doing certain things it's not logical. It's
right.
not logical to wake up every morning and to meditate. Like, why? You only got 24 hours, right? You only got 24 hours in a day. You spend 8 hours sleeping, then you only got, you know what I'm saying, 16 hours. Like you spend 8 hours working. All right, now you only got 8 hours. You took an hour to get to work and an hour to get home. All right. So now that's only 6 hours. Like, why would you waste that time sitting and doing nothing? Like, be productive, right? But it's like it's not logical, but you understand that in order for me physically to do the things that I'm called to do the things that I'm destined to do, I have to be mentally here. Right? I have to get my mind, my body in synchrony, right? And
Yes.
to go in. Does that kind of make a little bit of
Oh,
sense there?
that resonates because I've been off my meditation discipline for probably a
Mm.
good 6 months now,
Ooh.
and maybe, yeah, maybe a little less, but for sure not on it like I was. And I've
Mhm.
just recently been giving myself that time to go back and do that, because it's not like I forgot the purpose behind it.
Right, right.
Um, that's an emptying out and charging of that battery, you know, each morning, as you say. But there's like, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm already sleepy. So like, why do I need to go sit down and just sit up and sleep? Like, you know, all the things that we tell ourselves. But there's
Yeah.
a discipline there that we all, you know, have to exercise, that those discipline muscles, whatever those practices are for you. But I know for me, meditation is very important. And so you coming back and speaking that back into me again is like, I fully accept, you know,
Wow.
I'm here, I understand.
That's crazy, because I actually was saying that because I just meditated for the first time today in a while. So I was like, yeah, I need to get back on my hype too. So it's crazy how, you know, God is crazy. Yeah, God is God. How about that? God is God. I want to get back to, you know, you talked about, you know, what got you kind of started on this journey a little bit, but I do
Mhm.
want to talk about, you know, what is a day in the life of Dream like? Like, what does that consist of? What does that look like?
Okay. So a day in the life of Dream, again, Dream being my actor self. So I wake up, for example, my phone might get notifications, right? Of like apps like a Backstage or an Actors Access telling me, you know, your profile fits this ask.
Mm,
And I can decide, I can look through those, you know, whether or not decide if I want to put it in an audition, and I can just like straight up audition from the bed if I so choose to,
mm,
um, and put something out there. Or I can look into like what is coming my way without even effort. And so sometimes some things come my way without even effort, where I might get an email, for example, where a show is coming and here's an opportunity for me to go and audition for that particular show. Does it fit? But then there's also this other piece where Dream is not able to fully live out loud and fully be, because I am also an educator and I also have a full-time job that it consists of two different roles, being a professor and a director. And sometimes my professional life that actually pays me takes up so much space that Dream is sometimes sitting in the corner like, when you gonna tap on my shoulder? Like, when
mm,
do I get to show up? When do I get to come into the room with all the energy that you're giving to the directing and all the energy that you're giving to the classroom? When are you going to be able to give that back to Dream? And so oftentimes at this current state, as of today, October, where we at 17th, Dream is like, yo, I'm here. I'm here. Remember me? Like, I'm here.
mhm.
Like, when are you going to give me some of that? I recently went on an audition, for example, last week, and I was like super excited because it has been a minute since I've like actually showed up in full person for an audition. And I just remember being in that moment, like, if I was able to harness all the energy that I utilize in all these other spaces with just this, how much further can I go? And so right now, typical life day in the life of Dream is like looking at what auditions are available, but also, you know, looking like, when do I get to be in the center of what's happening right now? And so I have it typically, you know, the way life has worked, I typically have at least a couple of gigs a month. So next week, for example, I'm filming in Palo Alto, where,
Hey,
you know, I have a couple lines in this film. I just was in a short film called Bliss that just premiered last Friday at
hey,
Sheldon High School, where I played a therapist. And so, in the midst of me even trying to find time to breathe and pour life into Dream, somehow this engine keeps moving. Somehow opportunities just keep coming. And so what is for you, and you will have it. But a day in the life of Dream typically consists of like wanting more time,
mm,
wanting to just be more in that dream space, honestly. Yeah. And thinking about, how can I bring the storytelling into the classroom? How can I bring the storytelling or what I'm learning about in terms of Black history or Black culture into the craft? So, for example, I just auditioned for Ruth, which is in Raising in the Sun, which again is very pivotal because we're talking about segregation, discrimination, the feminist movement. We're talking about the treatment of the devalued Black male. But because I have this educator piece and I have that history, I can bring all that to the character. So just trying to find a way to blend those two things together is a typical day in the life of Dream. Yeah.
nah, I love that. I think that's dope that, in again, the fact that you have the historical piece, the historical context to it allows you to, like you said, bring that in the film, right? Allows it to bring that
Mhm.
into audition, and add a little spunk, you know what I'm saying,
Mhm,
to what you
mhm.
got going on. So I definitely think that's dope. In regards to this process of learning about the entertainment industry, right? What do you think is the worst mistake you've ever made, either within professionally as an actress, or just in life in general? What do you see yourself as, like, as the first thing? Because the reason I'm asking this question, and of course some of the audience may know, is the point of Wise Work Wednesdays is to kind of provide people with information behind the scenes, right? So
Mhm,
there may be somebody who's interested in starting a career in acting,
mhm.
and you know, our goal is to make sure that they don't make all the same mistakes that we made, right? They don't
Mhm.
do all the same things wrong in life or in a professional world that we did. And so I asked this question because I want the guests to be able to kind of give just a little bit of insight to their life or their professional career as to some of the things that they've done wrong. So what do you think is the worst mistake you've ever made, either professionally or in life?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to answer it very quickly. But I
Sure.
also want to, before I do that, give me some grace. And I want to go back to another day of the life of Dream. And that
Yeah.
would be, for example, I'm up, I'm working from home this particular day. I looked up some auditions. I decided if I was going to send in an application or not. But then I might be on a Zoom call for a director's meeting. But then I also might have a shoot at 12. And
Mm,
so then once I've transitioned from director, I got to go run and change into whoever that character is, and then set up my whole setup with the lights, the cameras, the action, and everything, and tap into that, or listen to my lines, listen to my sides where I'm in the shower on repeat, back, just constantly repeating as I'm getting dressed for that character and transition into that character, and then shoot. And then from taking that off, I might then have to change back into some other clothes and then go and pick up my son. So there's also this constant taking off different hats and putting on other hats all day. That's again a typical day in the life of Dream. Taking off one role to put on the other. Taking off one role to put on the
man.
other.
And I just want to, I think that's critical information for the audience to know. If you're listening and you're interested in being an actress or being in the entertainment industry, is that it's constant work. It's not like, a lot of people think, well, I'm just gonna go to acting school and then I'm gonna do act in a movie and I'm gonna be rich. And it's like it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to put in time. Like, she's doing short films, she's recording in Palo Alto, she's recording at Sheldon High School, like, she's going all that. Like, every time you see somebody recording, they had to get there, right? They
Right.
had to go there, which means they had to put the rest of their life on pause to go and do that. She's listening to her lines in the shower. Like, this means, like, you're constantly focused on what it is, what you need to accomplish. And so it's not for the lighthearted. Like, you got to be willing to grind it out, over time. And that's why I think there's a difference between people who are just doing this because it's a job, and who has a dream that this is what I want. Because when it's your dream, like,
Yeah.
and you genuinely, like, I know Dave Chappelle has a skit where he talks about that might not have been a dream at all. Like, if you really dream about this, nothing is going to stop you from accomplishing your dreams. And that includes a shower. That includes, like, you could be listening to your lines as you're going to go pick up your son. You might,
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
you're going to fight to make sure that this happens.
Exactly. My son has to read lines of sides with me all the time. Like all
Hmm.
the time he has to read lines. And so like he was watching me in the short film on Friday, and he was like, literally in the audience, I helped you read for those lines. I'm like, baby, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And
You
here's
in
the
it
thing.
too. Like,
Yeah, he is in it. He is my number one fan. Like, honestly, he
yeah.
is my number one fan. And here's the thing. I had to sit with myself and keep asking myself, why?
Mm,
Why do I want to do this? Because it's not for fame. I know that you can't. This is not you make it. Like, it's like the same thing with NFL. I'm just going to play football and then I'm going to become a professional football player and I'm going to be rich. No, it's not like that. This is
right.
not what this craft is about. So why do I want this, God? Why I kept asking God, why did you put this inside of me? What is the purpose? 'Cause I know it's not for fame. I know it's not to make money. Like, why? Like, I don't want, like, can you tell me like why you put this inside of me? And so again, it's to bring integrity to art. It's to tell these stories that are typically oftentimes Black stories, stories that don't get told often, and to show up in a character in a way that shows that we are all the things. Like, you can't typecast us. You can't put us in one particular category, but how are you bringing something new that people haven't seen, but also is something that somebody on that other side is waking up at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're tuning in, because there's a reason why somebody is watching TV at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 1 o'clock in the morning or watching a movie at these times. And those are the people that I'm actually trying to reach. And so I am willing to put my finances into this. I am willing to invest, and I'm also willing to do things that don't necessarily include a check, because I love this craft so much. Like, I love this, and then when I hear myself and then it's mirrored back to me, just like the joy that shows up when I have this conversation, I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the thing. This is one of the greatest things that gives me a feeling that nothing else does. And so
Yeah.
I want to continue to follow that. And I feel like, again, everyone has a different purpose or different purposes, but this is one that I denied myself from, which leads to your other question of what is the biggest professional mistake that I have made. And I will tell you, Joe Spider, it's doubting myself.
Mm, mm. Talk more. Say more.
So whether it be acting or whether it be in the classroom, whatever the case may be, but to doubt myself, to second guess myself, to think that I am not worthy of this, to think I am not capable of this, to think that I need something else in order to do this. All of that is like where I go wrong at.
Wow.
Completely wrong, because I have everything I need in order to do it. God has already equipped me with all that I need in order to show up. And having to trust that and lean into that is, scary, but it's
Yeah,
also very freeing when you put into
absolutely.
practice. Yeah. But that's
Absolutely.
it. Doubting myself.
We had a conversation, off camera, about it's a project that I was working on for a while that, I
Mhm.
finally was able to finish it. And throughout that time, and I know we talked about this off camera, I'm just kind of putting it on camera now, like, you have doubts. Like, throughout that time, I was having doubts and I was going frustrated, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should give up and things like that. But like, so I feel you 100%, as like the doubt that we have in ourselves
Mhm.
is and there's this song that Kendrick Lamar has on one of his albums, where GLC, who's a rapper, I think from like the South, he says like the only limitations that we have are the ones we place upon ourselves. And when I was younger, I was like, yeah, that sounds good, but nah, we got racism and and we got that. And it's like,
Mhm.
I understand that there are like limitations that people will try to put on
Mhm.
us, but in
Mhm.
reality, when you understand that you are a child of God, and so because you're a child of God, you have God-like ability, and you're able to accomplish, like, think about this. And again, this is where, us being in education, right, going into the historical context as Black people, right, or
Mhm.
people from the African diaspora, think about everything that the people from the African diaspora have been through in America, and look at what we've been able to accomplish,
Right.
because we believed that we are better than our conditions, right? And so again, when you place that doubt on yourself,
Mhm.
you will win. In regards to doubting yourself, you will win. But when you have the belief that I can do whatever I want,
Mhm.
as long as I continue to believe it, I can accomplish it, I can
Yes.
achieve it, I can make it so, then it will be so. I'm reading right now, or I'm going through these. I've already read this book called The Rich and Righteous by
Mm.
Julian Gordon. I'm sorry, he's from the Bay Area,
Mm.
but he talks about he's going through right now this in his YouTube channel. He has these different series where he reads different passages from the book, and he breaks down essentially like the Bible and uses different parables to kind of help us understand the power that we have. But he talks about how, like, in the beginning, right, there was nothing, right? It was darkness. And he said, God said, let there be light. He said it first, said it, right? So it wasn't just light, like he spoke it into
Mhm.
existence.
In the
And
beginning was the word.
was the word, and the word was God.
God.
You know what I'm saying? And so we have to understand that when we doubt ourselves, we're doubting our God-like ability. We're doubting the change that we can make on this planet, within, not just within ourselves, but the people that come in contact. Like,
Right.
I went to Ghana and had an amazing experience because you were at Ghana in Ghana,
Mm,
and there were certain things that you exposed me to. But in order for that to happen, you would have already had to go to Ghana before.
mhm.
You would have had to be walking in your purpose and doing the things that really truly you were passionate about years before,
Yeah.
in order to give me the experience that I needed to see for the
Wow.
very first time. So
Wow.
man, when you said that, I feel you. Doubt, absolutely. It can literally crush dreams. It can crush families. It can crush
Ooh,
legacies.
yes.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Just from
Absolutely.
saying I can't.
Or again, the questioning, and you talk yourself out of situations. Two things I want to say. I bring a lot of God to conversations, not because I'm perfect, you all, but
Mhm.
because I wouldn't be here without God. And God just always showing up. Like God is
Right.
like always there. And I'm glad, because for me, that's the anchor. That's what I need in order to make it in life. So a lot of the things that I say, I'm observing recently have a lot of God in them. I was picked to be a finalist for a TEDx talk recently. And
Hey.
when we had the conversation, I was like, this is what I've been toying with. And I was going to share with them condensed version of a story that's in my forthcoming book, From Resistance to Restoration, about my spiritual journey in Kemet, and what happened to me prior to coming there, what happened to me during, and what happened to me afterwards. And the person who heard the story, they were so enthralled. They loved every bit of it. But then they came back a week later and was like, we can only have secular conversations. We can't have things that talk about spirituality or religion. And so they want to know, will you like change your story, change your
Mm,
speech?
mm.
And I was like,
Ooh.
hmm,
Ooh. Decisions.
where am I at? Where's the capacity right today? Like, where are we at? Let me check in with self. Do I have it in me to change the story? And where did that story even come from? And if that's what showed up, and they're not into that, then maybe I don't think this is the talk for me. Let me sit on it. So then I asked him, like, well, what's the deadline? When would you like, what's the deadline for me to change the story? And I just was like honest with myself. Like, if you have the capacity, and if something else shows up, because I've publicly spoken so many places, I could have put what we say, the circle in the square peg, or the square peg in the circle. I can twist
Mhm.
and turn and pull to make it happen. But I'm at a place right now where I'm like, no,
Nah,
that
I'm
that
cool.
that requires too much energy. I can do that. Like I,
Right.
I can I can make some shit happen. Sorry for the cussing,
You
but
good. You
I can
good.
make it happen. But is that the inertia? Like, do I want to use my energy like that right now? And so I'm checking in with myself on when I use that energy and for what purpose. And I made the decision, like, well, I guess I won't be doing that TEDx talk. Maybe another one will come around, but I won't be doing that particular TEDx talk. And then last night I was on the phone talking to a close friend, and they were like, you kind of sound sad. And I was like, no, I'm just indifferent. And they were like,
Mm.
indifferent in what way? I was like, I'm just whatever. I'm just indifferent. And I kid you not, Josiah, I went to sleep listening to a sermon by Sarah Jakes. She was at the Potter's house, and she was the speaker for this past Sunday. And so I was like, let me go to sleep listening to this, just so good things are going into the psyche. And I missed it. I went up to use the bathroom. You just wake up in the middle of the night. Sermon's still
Right.
going on. And what is she saying as I'm getting into bed? You cannot be indifferent,
Ooh.
because that is stagnant energy. And that is what the
Ooh.
enemy wants you to be, stagnant. There are things that God put inside of you. You cannot quit. You don't get the chance to. You don't have the choice. You don't get to be indifferent. And I just looked around the room and was like, well, okay, then.
Ooh. Message heard loud and clear.
Okay. And go to sleep. And I was like, all right. And so again, that goes back to the doubting, like, oh, you must have been trying to go down that road of doubt again. And you know what happens when you decide to go down the road of doubt. It's not good for any of us.
Right.
It's not good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it's crazy because I feel like you're kind of preaching to me. Like, 'cause there's some other things, I'll talk to you about off camera that, I was having some doubts with, but so you preaching, sis.
And again, I'm not even trying to preach, and this is what ends up happening. But as a kid, I used to be like, I'm gonna speak like I would feel this energy like Martin Luther King Jr. And unfortunately, I would think of him and not a woman necessarily, but I would think like I'm gonna speak like Martin Luther King Jr. in places. And it shows up sometimes. And I just have to accept. That's why you just gotta accept who you are and just own it.
Exactly. You got to. So let me ask you another question is with your journey, there's been some pros and cons, right? So in your opinion, what do you think are some of the best and some of the worst things about your particular journey within being Dream?
Okay. For one, I would say some of the best is that the moment I decided to take that key and unlock that door, the opportunities just came, which was an affirmation and a confirmation that I made the right choice. And I have had the opportunity to act with some really good friends of mine. I've had an opportunity to meet some amazing people. I've had an opportunity because of that to take a deep look inside of myself and be honest with where I'm weak, where I'm strong, what I bring, who I am. It's a complete self-analysis of self because all the everything that you are shows up on the camera. It shows up. All your insecurities, if you are over talker, if you don't listen, if you scared, if you happy, if you talk too much, all of those, everything about you, good, bad, and indifferent, it's going to show up. And so it gave me an opportunity to really look in the mirror and look at myself and see how I want to evolve, how I want to be a better person. And it also puts something in me to go back to just that imagination, like taking the limits off. Like, nah, like God put this inside of me, and the eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, and not even because I'm forcing, again, trying to stick it in there. But if I stay disciplined, practice it every day, and continue to believe it, it's going to come to me just naturally. And then the second part of so that's been like the best part, right? And I think also the best part of that is the awareness that I've had of like now me understanding why I went down the road of being an educator. Because one thing I didn't want to do is show up in this industry, because when I was younger, I had a chance to model and act. But what deterred me was the pretentiousness and the superficiality and the egos, and then also
this that's highlighted,
and the idea that I needed to be hypersexualized, I needed to do certain things on camera if I wanted to make it in this business. So all those things on top of real life happening pushed that, like, well, this is not for me, because I want to be like Phylicia Rashad. She gets just to be, she doesn't have to take her clothes off. She gets to show up with integrity, or whatever that means, right? She gets to just show up in a way that I would deem worthy and bring dignity to the character or to the scene. And now I've learned, like, that's why you have that education piece. That's why you're an educator. You learned about Black representation in film, Black representation in popular culture, Black representation in the media. So you know how the industry works to a certain extent, and you know how to not conform and not push back. And also, because I am the age that I am, I know that I get to brand myself. The industry doesn't get to brand me. I get to decide who and how I am and what's my brand. I'm not desperately like, pick me and tell me how I have to be, no, I get to decide that for myself.
Yeah.
And had I been younger, I might have thought like the other powers that be, they get to shape and mold. But now I know, no, I'm the driver of this.
Yeah.
I get to do that. So those have been some of the best things. And then the second part, what was the latter part of that question?
Some of the worst things. Yeah. So what do you think are some of the worst things? And if you don't want to talk about it because you got so many best things, that's fine too. Like,
Okay, well, I mean, it's a fair question. I think some of the worst things are is just the fact that, well, I don't know how worse that is.
I
Worse?
mean, it's up to your interpretation of what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like the best thing
Yeah.
might be the fact, like everything that you mentioned before. One of the worst things might be is just time consuming. Like what do you feel like is, one of the worst things? If none, that's completely fine. We can leave it on a positive
Yeah.
note.
Maybe again, this is going to probably sound super cliche, but the worst part of is that me not having a structured life in such a way that I can give more time to this craft.
Okay.
That I have other things like right now, and again, people who know me know this. Right in front of me, over on a wall right there, are 4 quadrants. There's a quadrant that has 4 different areas, and it's like Professor Drea, Dream, some other professional goals, and then my director piece. And there's a list of things for this entire year, right? So not only there are a list of the goals, but there's also projects, and then there's also systems, what needs to happen in order to achieve each of those things. And I take a look at this like almost every single day, and I decide seasonally, like, okay, I think for one season, I might be more in one quadrant than the other, one area than the other. But I would like, the worst thing is that I don't get to like just do more of the dream stuff.
No doubt. No
But it's
doubt.
just how I structured it. And I know it's coming. It's coming. It's all about how
Absolutely.
you structure your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in your throughout your journey, there are times where you've kind of overcome challenges. When you are facing those difficulties, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? What's that battery pack? What's that
Yeah.
that charger that lets you, keep going through those difficult times?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Typically, it's a devotion, a morning devotion, some type of word from God, some type of spiritual word. Right now, for example, every day I am going to read a particular devotion with different plans that are where I currently am emotionally and where I need help. And so going to read them and letting God love on me in that way. And it's also, I've been reading some books by Paulo Coelho. If people are familiar with the book called The Alchemist, right now I'm reading his book called The Archer. And these are extremely wise stories. They have so much wisdom in the story that you got to unpack, pull the layers off to understand those things. And that's the way you have to teach me. So reading things that allow me to ponder deeply on this journey in life, and remembering that, we are here earthside for a moment, and I have some things that I'm supposed to do while I am here. So going back to reminding myself that it's okay to get tired sometimes, it's okay to even be low sometimes, but I have to constantly pour into myself with reading those texts. I also am a vegetarian. So, for example, I'll think about like, what have I been eating? Have I been eating high vibrational foods? Have I been eating low vibrational foods? Maybe I need to go
Mm.
downstairs, and make me a cold pressed juice. Like this morning, I had cucumber, zucchini, and kiwi cold pressed juice with some ginger in it. Because again, we need to make sure we're eating live food. So I also think about live foods. I also have other sacred women practices that involve just like going to that altar, journaling, and emptying out. So my biggest thing is like giving my space to empty out so I can fill back up again.
I love that. And I definitely think we don't it's hard to how I'm trying to phrase this. Our diet is so relatable to our moods.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
the things that people it's so related to our health. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat beef or pork.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed the way I stopped eating beef about 5 years ago now. So
Mm-hmm.
2018, I stopped eating beef, and I stopped eating pork back in 2000, I think 14 or 13 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I've just noticed my body and the way that it responds differently. The way it's easier to shed weight, the way it's easier to move. I don't feel sluggish. I don't so certain
Mm-hmm.
things that I don't eat. Like
Mm-hmm.
I stopped eating bread. so much,
Mm.
just little things
That's
that
a
you
hard
just
one.
it is, right? Especially the way I be working, they be trying to give us pizza and sandwiches. I'd be like, nah, I'm cool. But it's just I'm noticing the way that I feel and the way that I think.
That part.
You know what I'm saying? The way that I think. I notice that when I'm eating candy, which is a bad habit of mine, I love me some candy.
It's good.
You know what I'm saying? But I noticed that when I stop eating it, I'm thinking of on a higher vibration. Like I'm not so negative. I'm not in a
Yes.
state of depression. I'm not like I'm more like, oh no, I can do this. I can overcome. I can, this ain't nothing. You done been through work. Like I'm giving myself those talks. Whereas to when
Mm,
I'm eating
mm,
things like burgers or fries and things
mhm.
like that, it's like I notice that it's more like, today's just not a good day, right? And it's
Yeah.
because I said it wasn't a good day, but the reason I said it was because of what I ate. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
I
That
do
put me
know.
in that mood.
Exactly. I'll like if I'm like having low vibes, I'm like, what you eat last week? A hell of sugar and a lot of carbs. Oh,
Man,
of course. And if there was some any dairy, even a little bit of dairy in there for me, it's gonna be like, okay, this leads to the low vibrational thinking because challenges are always gonna come.
right,
But what is it that I'm consuming to like give myself that fuel? And I'm telling myself, my son this daily because he doesn't like to eat the school food, or even if we pack his lunch, he don't want the sandwich that's I put in there because he's over the sandwich. So he just want to eat. He just wants all the snacks. But I'm like, but you're not feeding your brain. So now when you have a challenging math problem, you're frustrated. You're talking saying negative things to yourself, and
right,
you can't focus because sugar is the ADHD piece. And
right,
as I'm saying this to him, I'm like, okay, God, because God is saying it right back to me. He's
right.
like mirroring it right back to me. And that mirror concept is another really big one.
Ooh, talk about it.
I
Talk about it.
believe that everyone and every situation is mirroring something about us back to us, whether we like it or we don't.
Mm,
Everything is just mirroring parts of us back to ourselves. So when we have that acceptance, or at least when I have that acceptance, then I'm allowed to be able to go back in there and give myself some grace and be like, okay, well, where do I need to switch it up so that what is being mirrored to me is more in alignment with what I would like to bring into my vortex.
absolutely.
Yeah, and
No
this
doubt.
conversation is one of those things.
Yeah, it's love. It's
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
Um, I do want to because I know we're coming up on about an hour. There's a couple of questions that we definitely like to rock or like to ask all of our guests, and so I want to provide you with an opportunity. And today's session was just about dream for the most part. We gonna get Dr. Moore on here eventually. Right, we gonna get
Okay.
Dr. Moore on here where we can talk about because there's so much that you have to offer as well from an academic standpoint, right? As an educator, as a facilitator in workshops, as people you've literally taken people to Kemet, to Ghana, to and so we will definitely at some point get Dr. Moore on. But today I wanted to make it definitely about dream because
I
there's
appreciate that. See?
for sure. No doubt, no doubt. Um, so for this, the first question that I have is, what's one piece of advice or information that you can give to others to help them comprehend the lifestyle or challenges of an actress or an educator? I would say let's try to aim it more towards the actress side because we're gonna get Dr. Moore on here to be the educator later on. So, what are some challenges or what is some advice that you can give people to help them comprehend the lifestyle that you live?
All right. The first thing that I would say is they need to really sit and ask themselves why. Why are you doing this? The basis of the question is determines the decision. I mean, the basis of the decision determines why you're doing everything that you're doing. So what is the muse? What is the real reason? Number one, you before you can even get into the day or the activities or the tasks that go along with it, why are you doing this? And being so clear on that, because when life gets hard or when things get hectic, you need to be able to go back and remember the reason why you're even doing this. What is the basis of that? And make sure it's one that you can stand on, that you're proud of. Um, I also think that this is not this is a true craft that you have to study. yes, God gave us all talent, but there's also a piece where you, as a respect for the industry you're trying to walk into, you want to study the craft. You want to know who came before you. You want to know how can you, you know, contribute to the craft. And that's going to take some time, a constant learning. A constant learning. It's kind of like how comedians, they still go do stand up every now and then because they want to make sure that they're not rusty, that they're still sharp, that they're still quick, they're still
Right.
putting themselves out there. So always, again, not knowing your why, but also knowing that this is a lifelong study. This is a lifelong journey of trying to study. And then also, I would say you really have to kind of know who you are and what it is that you want to bring to this industry, because there's be so many people who tell you how you should be, who you should be, how they see you being, and what you can't be, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be so clear. Because if I was listening to the world, people would tell me based on my age, like, you're too old for this. You know, for example, like there's a lot of naysayers. So you have to be so clear on who you are and what you're bringing and why you're doing what it is that you're doing. But also just understand that this is not some superficial overnight sensation. This really is. And what I've had to learn about being an actor is you also have to be willing to write the stories that you want to be a part of. So you have to kind of play multiple roles. You got to be the writer, the director, and the actor. You have to be the makeup artist. You have to be the set designer. You have to be willing to wear many hats until, you know, you get big enough to where those different people will be there, and they won't be there for just once, because you can star in one thing, but then that's done. It's over. What's next? This is a
Right.
lifetime of work. It's not you did something one time and then everything is like done. It's over. You want to continue to be able to work and understand that this is the nature of the business. It's an ongoing process. It really is. And you have to know that nobody can bring what you bring.
Mm.
And they need, when we look at TV or films and movies, they need everybody of all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all everything to be in there. So there is
Yeah.
a space for everybody. There really is. And I would also say is like, don't focus on like that competition mentality.
Yeah.
Because again, you're your best and biggest competitor in this scene. But again, thinking just about what you are bringing, how you want to make yourself better. I think those are the words that I would want to say as it relates to acting. Just
Yeah.
I think in life in general, I think to add to that, I think we're always learning different lessons. I'll probably have a different wise word next week, but my wise word for this week would be it's important to plan your life, but don't try to control it.
Mm.
Because when we try and control our lives is when that flow stops. We can't flow with control. And control is what leads to our anxiety. It would leads to us trying to jump in the future and try to figure things out and do all these what ifs. And we do not have the capacity for that. So all you end up doing is hurting yourself mentally and physically. So it's okay to plan your life, but don't try to control it. Go with the flow as it moves.
I love that.
Harder, right? Definitely harder to do, but easier said than done type.
No, that's real. And I want to go back to the other question when you answered, you talked about, you know, being willing to write the story, right? Being willing to write the story that you're going to be acting within. And it's, you know, as I've always been an observer of a lot. And don't get me wrong, I could speak really well, but I also observe a lot of things that's going on. And one of the things I noticed is that how uh, how people from the African diaspora are represented within the media, right?
Mhm.
Within the movies, the kinds of roles people are given. You know, when you're younger, it's all entertainment, but when you're older, you start, and for me, I start to analyze and critique it a lot more than just it being something to keep me entertained. And one one simple piece can literally shift the
Mm,
entire dynamic of a film. So, for example, if you're doing a family piece, right, and it's about a person and their family, making the person black
mm,
then means that you automatically add other Black people in roles, in positions, and
Mm-hmm.
opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a coincidence that Hollywood represents only a certain demographic of Black people,
Mm.
right? A certain character of Black people, a certain kind of Black people, the way
Mm-hmm.
that they do. And so I've just been more aware that when I'm looking at these films and these roles and these positions that people are in, I'm like, all it took was one Black person. And if a kid is Black, that means his mom or his dad had to be Black, or her mom or her dad had to be Black, or both dads or both moms had to be Black, right? Or whatever, however it is, right? Or that means the brother is Black, that means the sister is Black, that means that you know what I mean, he's in a Black neighborhood, like where
Mm-hmm.
did so it's like having that one person, right, can literally create an
Mm-hmm.
entire difference in regards
Mm-hmm.
to what the stage, what the film looks like. And so being able to have the ability to write those pieces, to envision that you see a Black film that's not called a Black film. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like
Mm.
it's just called a film, but
Mm.
it just happens to have all Black people in it, or the
Mm-hmm.
majority of Black people in it, because we don't
Mm-hmm.
call films that have majority white films. We don't call them white films if they got the majority
Right.
white people. We just
Right.
call them films. We just call them shows, right? We call Friends a show. We don't call Friends the white people show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we have those people that are in position to do that and are willing to speak life into that vision, speak life into that dream, and then accomplish that dream, it literally allows other people to have opportunity. And I say this often when I'm giving, my motivational presentations. I say this a lot. I always reference Tyler Perry when he got his I think it was like the Lifetime Achievement Award through the BET awards a few years ago. He said there are people whose dreams are tied to your dreams.
Woo!
There are literally people who are waiting for you to accomplish what you're supposed to do so
Mm-hmm.
that they can have a chance, even
Wow.
a chance,
Wow.
to get to where they are supposed to be. But
Yeah.
it doesn't even happen if you're not walking in your purpose and doing what you're supposed to do. Tyler Perry is able to employ thousands of people who look like him because he was doing what he was supposed to do, despite the criticism, right?
Right.
Despite the frustration, despite the times of giving up, despite the times where he was homeless. At the end of the day, he did what he was supposed to do. And now thousands of people literally have jobs that they can feed their families with because he was walking in their purpose. So that's why I completely love that you brought that up. People's
Wow.
dreams are tied to yours. And so you
Woo!
have to be willing to walk in that purpose, and you have to be willing to fulfill that dream.
You made me think of two things. One, her character's name was Florida Evans on Good Times.
Mm,
The mother refused to be on the show if there was no father, because they initially wrote the story without a father. Because
wow.
when we look at Black TV and the history of Black TV, our first Black family was a show called Julia, starring Diane Carroll, and her husband had died in the war or something.
Mm,
But they would never put the father. Like, you had the shows before that, all of the family shows had the historical two-parent household and the children. But Good Times, they wanted this show, and she said, I'm not doing this show unless you give them a father. And so
right.
that's when they brought in James Evans. But he would eventually put up so much ruckus behind the show because of the buffoonery and coonery of the character of JJ. And they put the militant mouth in the child Michael because it was more palatable to wide stream audiences to have a young revolutionary opposed to
Hmm.
an adult revolutionary. But he was putting up so much ruckus behind the scenes, he eventually, leaves the show anyway. But
Yeah.
she refused in the beginning, and that would be our first, right? And that's that representation that our Black family is always going through the struggle. But
Right.
has she not done that, right? We have the two parent that dynamic on screen. And then you also made me think about Spike Lee, who said, and I'm gonna butcher the quote, there's not a representation he can put on TV or in film that can undo what D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation did to us.
Man, a lot of people don't know about that. That was the first film A lot of people
Yeah,
don't know about it.
1915, where
Yeah.
we're, in the courtroom with our shoes off, eating watermelon and drinking alcohol, and like obsessed with white women. All of
Mhm.
these are these, hyper stereotypes, and he argues that they put that in film so early that people bought into it. Even the president called it also very true. So
Right.
again, I think I try and stand in the gap to be like, we can, little by little, bit by bit, we can continue to push back against those stereotypes. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
also see the same image and see more than just a stereotype.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. I love that. Doctor. Oh no, hold on. This is Dream. This is Dream.
But
We got
Doctor is also in Dream. You see how it
that's
all
true.
comes
That's
together.
real. That's real. That's real. Now, I want to say again, thank you for taking time to be on the show. I'm super excited for the things that you have coming up. Is there anything that you want to tell the folks about? I know you talked already about a couple of
Well,
films that you're
like
working on.
this is like all the way sideways. This is the 50th anniversary of hip hop this entire year. I'm also
Yeah, you
into
did the hyphy movement documentary. Yeah.
Yes. And so Sac State is bringing the screening We Were Hyphy to their school October 24th. Come out, y'all. We're going to be in the Terrace Suite celebrating the hyphy movement as our gift. My gifts to the hyphy movement. I provide the academic framework in there and that particular documentary, because Dream also gets to just show up as a professor in documentaries as well. So again, shout out to the 50th anniversary of hip hop and shout out to the hyphy movement.
No doubt. That's love. That's super love. That was my I literally, hyphy movement. That was us. That was us for
Yeah.
sure. So I'm
Yeah.
super excited for that. Thank you again for being on here. You're gonna do some dope things in the future. I look forward to collaborating again with you
Yes.
in the future. I look forward to us going back to the motherland, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying, and whatnot, and the things that you were able to expose me to, life changing. And so continue to create change amongst the people that you work with and you come in contact with, not only from the academics perspective, but also just professionally, and also just naturally the people that you come in contact with and encounter on a daily basis. Like, you're always creating change. So you're dope. Continue to be dope.
Yeah, remember our theme out there was Big Stepping. We both
Mhm.
need a big step.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. It was
yeah.
big stepping out there.
Over them trees, look, over
Yeah.
them trees, man. Yeah, it's a blessing. So listen, FYB presents Wise Word Wednesdays. I'm gonna leave y'all with a We Fresh.